Did you know that on the morning of May 29, 1453, the great city of Constantinople finally fell after a 49-day siege, bringing to an end the Byzantine Empire that had stood for over 11 centuries? For more than 1,000 years, the city had survived earthquakes, sieges, and the shifting tides of empires. Its double walls had repelled Persians, Arabs, and Crusaders alike. Yet, in that single dawn, Sultan Mehmed II's army poured through gaping breaches, and a new era began. That dramatic moment fulfilled a prediction spoken by Prophet Muhammad centuries before, recorded in authentic traditions. "You shall conquer Constantinople. What a wonderful leader will her leader be, and what a wonderful army will that army be." For the soldiers of the Ottoman forces, the conquest was more than a matter of strategy or politics. It was a sacred mission. Each banner that fluttered in the dawn breeze, each cannon that thundered against the ancient walls, carried the conviction that they were enacting a promise foretold by divine will. Imagine the tension. On one side, a handful of exhausted defenders clinging to the remnants of a once mighty empire. On the other, tens of thousands of determined soldiers chanting Allahu Akbar with every step. In those final hours, the fate of Europe and the Middle East hinged on the clash of stone and steel, faith and ambition. Constantinople, named for Emperor Constantine, who refounded the ancient city of Byzantium in 330 CE, sat astride two continents. Perched where the Bosphorus meets the Sea of Marmara, it controlled the trade routes between Asia and Europe. Caravans carrying silk and spices funneled through its markets, while ambassadors and pilgrims streamed through its grand gates. Above the city rose the dome of Hagia Sophia, a marvel of engineering and artistry. Its golden mosaics reflecting the morning sun like a beacon. Under Justinian in the 6th century, the city reached its golden age. His reconquest campaigns briefly reunited much of the old Roman world. For Christians, Constantinople symbolized the continuation of Rome's glory under a new faith. Great libraries flourished, and scholars preserved classical learning through turbulent centuries. The city became a center of art, theology, and diplomacy. By the early 15th century, however, the Byzantine realm had shrunk to little more than the walled city itself and a few scattered islands. Decades of civil war, plague, and economic decline had sapped its strength. Meanwhile, to the east and across the Dardanelles, a new power was on the rise: the Ottoman state. Born of Turkic warriors and Balkan converts, had grown from a small frontier emirate into an empire stretching across Anatolia and the Balkans. Sultan Mehmed II, who took the throne at age 19, possessed the zeal of youth and the mind of a scholar. Fluent in multiple languages and steeped in both Islamic and classical history, he believed he had a destiny to fulfill. He viewed the conquest of Constantinople not only as a strategic necessity, but as a duty prescribed by faith and by the prophecy of the prophet. With the city's fall, he would secure his legacy and open a new chapter in world history. For the Byzantines, survival was a daily struggle. Their treasury lay empty, their fields lay fallow from neglect, and few men remained able to take up arms. Emperor Constantine XI, Palaiologos, the last of his line, inherited a city encircled by enemies and wary allies. He appealed to Pope Nicholas V and to the courts of Venice and Genoa. Yet most Christian rulers remained preoccupied with rivalries in Western Europe or feared Ottoman reprisals at home. Only a handful of ships and a few thousand mercenaries answered his call. The Ottomans, by contrast, brimmed with confidence. Their conquests in the Balkans had brought them within striking distance of the city. With Adrianople as their staging point, they could muster an army of perhaps 80,000 to 100,000 men, including elite janissaries, swift Sipahi cavalry, and seasoned Azap infantry. Yet even they confronted a daunting obstacle: the Theodosian Walls. These massive ramparts, built in the 5th century, formed a triple line of defense with deep moats and towers spaced every few dozen meters. Conquering them would require more than brute force. Naval control posed a second challenge: the Golden Horn Inlet, protected by a massive chain boom, provided the city with a sheltered harbor. Greek, Venetian, and Genoese ships dominated those waters. To cut off supplies and reinforcements, the Ottomans needed to neutralize that advantage, a feat that demanded ingenuity and daring. On the diplomatic front, Christianity's unity fractured along political lines. While the Pope called for a crusade, Venice feared the loss of its trading privileges. Hungary prioritized its own border defense. Genoa hesitated to alienate its lucrative ties with the Ottomans. In the courts of Europe, Constantinople became a distant cause, overshadowed by dynastic disputes and local conflicts. The Byzantines stood isolated, their fate hanging by a slender thread. At its heart, the struggle transcended mere politics. For Byzantines, the city embodied their identity and faith, a bulwark of Eastern Christianity. For Ottomans, its capture would fulfill the Prophet's promise and extend the banner of Islam across continents. Both sides believed they were in a righteous struggle, a test of wills between civilization and ambition. From the moment he secured his throne, Mehmed II prepared meticulously. He surveyed classical texts on siegecraft and naval warfare. He summoned engineers and architects, ordering them to inspect every gate and tower of the city's defenses. He dispatched spies to map the inner workings of the walls, the location of wells, and the availability of food. In April of 1452, work began on 2 fortresses that would strangle Constantinople's lifeblood. On the European shore of the Bosphorus, Rumeli Hasari rose in record time. Towers and walls stretching from one bank to the other, ready to command the strait. Across the water, Anadolude Sari, on the Asian side, stood guard. Together, they choked off grain shipments from the Black Sea. And the city's warehouses, once brimming with wheat, began to empty. Mehmed then turned to the sea. Knowing he could not contend with the Venetian fleet in open battle, he devised an audacious plan. He had flat bench boats hauled over greased logs across Galata Hill, from the Bosphorus into the Golden Horn. At night, these vessels slipped through poorly guarded gates and joined the Ottoman galleys waiting inside. With surprise on his side, Mehmed nullified the chain boom and established a naval presence in the harbour. Artillery, too, would play a decisive role. Mehmed's most famous recruit was a Hungarian gunsmith named Orban, who cast a giant bombard capable of firing 600-pound stone shot. This basilican cannon took months to build and days to position. But when its first ball exploded against the walls, the ground trembled as if in an earthquake. Though it spat only a few rounds each day, its psychological impact was immense, and its stones shattered towers once thought unbreakable. Facing such power, the city's defenders remained resolute. Emperor Constantine XI walked the ramparts daily, his purple cloak fluttering behind him like a banner of faith. He placed his trust in Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, a Genoese captain whose skill with crossbow and sword was renowned. Giustiniani led a small corps of veteran soldiers, repelling assaults and plugging breaches with wooden beams and fresh mortar. Each night, Byzantine workers toiled to repair shattered walls, while civilians carried water to parched defenders. All the while, religious fervor burned on both sides. Within the Ottoman camp, imams recited Quranic verses before battle, praying for victory and recitation of the prophecy's words. Banners bore the names of Allah, Muhammad, and the caliphs. In the churches of Constantinople, priests blessed the walls and sprinkled holy water, urging the faithful to stand firm. Some chroniclers describe how both camps claimed divine favor, convinced that God would not abandon the cause they held true. Beneath the walls, sappers dug tunnels to undermine gate towers, filling shafts with wood and oils to ignite explosive fires. The Byzantines countered with their own mining crews, listening for the enemy's picks. When a deep rumble signaled an Ottoman tunnel ready to collapse a tower, miners would break through and extinguish the flames before the fuses could ignite. This subterranean chess game claimed dozens of lives on each side. As days passed, hunger and disease stalked the defenders. Rats infested granaries, and the chlorine-tainted pools of standing water bred fevers. Civilians, from lace-making women to elderly clerics, carried stones and scrubbed walls, lending every hand to the city's defense. Outside, Ottoman camp followers tended to wounded soldiers, prepared fresh mortar, and hauled cannon shot to the front lines. Yet, even as the city wore down, hope flickered anew with a rumor spread by an Ottoman captive that the prophet's own words promised them victory at the hands of a leader as noble as the city's founder. For the Turks, that promise turned determination into near frenzy. Each assault became a bid to prove themselves worthy of the prophecy. Each breach widened not just in stone, but in the resolve of the besiegers. In the pre-dawn gloom of May 29, Mehmed summoned his commanders and made his final preparations. Trumpets sounded, war drums rolled. The air brimmed with the scent of gunpowder and fear. As the first light slipped across the ramparts, the Ottoman cannon roared once more, signaling the start of the all-out assault. At the land walls, the Janissaries led the charge. Climbing iron ladders under a hail of arrows, they reached the outer wall, where they planted axes against the stone. Behind them, Azape infantry streamed forward, their curved swords flashing. On the northern front, Sipahi horsemen circled in feigned retreats, drawing defenders from their posts only to turn and attack from the rear. Giovanni Giustiniani and his Genoese crossbowmen held firm at a key breach near the San Romanus gate. Their bolts slew dozens of attackers, yet the constant pounding of the Basilic had already crumbled the adjacent tower, creating a gap too wide to hold. When a section of wall collapsed, Janissaries poured in like water through a broken dam. Shouts of "Allahu Akbar" echoed from the plaza to the ramparts. Emperor Constantine XI fought among his soldiers, rallying them with cries of "For the city! For our emperors!" He struck down foes with his sword until a hail of arrows felled him. Some eyewitnesses claim they saw him fall guard, still up, his face turned to the city's heart. With his death, Byzantine resistance dissolved into scattered pockets of defiance. Soon, Ottoman flags crowned the towers. In the shadows of Hagia Sophia, Mehmed dismounted and led a prayer of thanksgiving. Orders went out to spare the lives of unarmed citizens and to protect churches and monasteries. An act of mercy that would earn him praise, even from some Christian chroniclers. That same afternoon, the Hagia Sophia's door swung open and its altar was draped with a new carpet, as it was consecrated as an imperial mosque. The fall of Constantinople marked a turning point in world history. The Byzantine Empire, heir to Rome's legacy, vanished at a stroke. The city, renamed Istanbul, became the shining capital of a sprawling Ottoman realm that would endure for nearly half a millennium. Under Mehmed's rule, Istanbul blossomed into a melting pot of cultures. Greeks, Armenians, Jews, and Turks lived side by side under the millet system. Each community granted autonomy in return for loyalty to the Sultan. Trade routes shifted. The spice and silk caravans now passed beneath the crescent moon, enriching Ottoman coffers and fueling flamboyant architectural projects. Grand bazaars hummed with merchants from Cairo to Venice. Ottoman shipyards on the Golden Horn launched fleets that extended Muslim influence into the Mediterranean and beyond. In Europe, the news of Constantinople's fall sparked shock and soul-searching. Scholars fleeing the city carried precious manuscripts, works of Plato, Euclid, and Archimedes, that would help ignite the Renaissance in the West. Politicians agonized over their failure to come to Byzantium's aid, while naval powers raced to build gun-armed vessels capable of countering Ottoman galleys. For Muslims, the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad had come true in glorious fashion. The victory became a celebrated chapter in Islamic law, recited in mosques and schools as a testament to divine promise and human courage. Mehmed II, once dubbed the Young, earned the title Fatih, the Conqueror, forever linked with the realization of that ancient hadith. Generations later, historians still debate the siege's finer points, the number of defenders, the precise role of artillery, even the date of the emperor's death. Yet all agree on its lasting impact, the transformation of a Christian stronghold into an Islamic capital, the shift in world trade that prompted new voyages westward, and the enduring symbol of religious conviction clashing on the battlefield. As modern travelers walk through the streets of Istanbul, beneath Ottoman mosques and Byzantine cisterns, they tread upon the layered past of a city born of prophecy and forged by siege. Its stones still whisper the story of that fateful spring, when faith and steel decided the fate of empires. The conquest of Constantinople reminds us that history turns on moments of courage, vision, and belief. It shows how a single prophecy can inspire an army to take up arms and reshape the world, and how the rise and fall of great cities can echo across centuries. What surprises you most about the fall of Constantinople? Its dramatic final hours, the role of prophecy, or its ripple effects on trade and culture? Share your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this journey through history, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. In our next video, we'll explore how the Ottoman Empire built upon this triumph to become one of the longest learning empires in history. Stay curious and see you in the next chapter.